I wanted to go through another example because, I think that the major life transitions are the ones that are the most stressful and the one where I think most people worry the most. So we talked about decisions that you have to make that we feel like the rest of our lives may be doomed if we don't make
Right.
the right decisions.
Right.
Okay, and then there's another class of life stressors that have to do with loss,
Right.
death of a family member, loss of a job, loss of a marriage and a divorce, all
Mhm.
those kind of loss category, which kind of feels like a different flavor of this. How would you describe when you work with clients? How have you helped them? How would you first of all describe what this that kind of category of thing is, and how do you help them with the gift of maybe?
Well, the first thing is, I am a big believer. You need to feel what you feel, and I
Hmm.
know there are a lot of theories out there that you can never have a negative thought. You always have to, or else you won't manifest. I'm a big believer that if you have something, if you're feeling deep inside, you have to let it out. I remember once I decided that I was going to be a positive thinker, which
Hmm.
is very dangerous for someone who's afraid of uncertainty.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not going to let a negative thought in. And all day long, it's like, oh, I'm going to hold this positive thought. I'm going to hold it. And all day long, I suppressed every negative thought. And that night, I went to sleep. I had a dream that my mother in law died, my father in law died, my mother died, my father died. I woke up, I fell asleep, I had the exact same nightmare. And I think what
Wow.
happened is all day long, I was suppressing what I was feeling. So there's something very real about loss. And for
Hmm.
anyone to say, move on with it, just have positive thoughts, is really not being fair to the process of life. And actually, I had a really interesting experience because I had not dealt with maybe and loss for a very long time. And when originally I self-published this book, and eventually Penguin Random House bought it, but when I self-published the book, I used to give it to whoever that I would meet, and I
Right.
gave it to a fellow who actually lost his wife. And I
Oh.
gave him the book, and he came back to me 2 weeks later, and he's like, "I hated your book." He's like, "I
Oh.
just lost my wife because my life has no maybe. I will never be happy again." And
Oh.
for a long time, I was really very reflective about it. Like, does
Yeah.
maybe have its limitations? Does maybe work when you're a middle class person and you're starting a business and your kids are well, and then it doesn't work when something horrible happens in your life? And I sat with it for a long time. And what's interesting about this story is 2 years later, this fellow came back to me and said, "Allison, I'm so thankful that you gave me that book. Because
Wow.
when you gave me the book originally, I was grieving, I was sad, I couldn't find hope. But there came a time in my life where I was still here, I was still breathing. And I actually sat down one day and I said, maybe there's something left for me to experience in my life." So that's
Mm.
very profound. It's not saying life is going to be as great as it was yesterday. What it's saying is that I am here. Maybe there's something left to experience. And today he has a girlfriend and he's much happier than he was.
Mm.
And maybe doesn't say he's happier with the girlfriend than he was his wife. It merely
Yeah.
says, I am here. What's
Right.
left? What's possible? That's what's so profound about it. No matter what your hardship is in life, if you have breath, you have maybe. And sometimes, I know I work with a lot of people that their children are disabled, they're special needs, they're sick. Even if it comes down to some sun on the face or a little cup of tea, life comes down to these really special moments. If we're here, then there's something left to experience and maybe reminds us of that. And it's
Mm.
not always easy, but you have to allow yourself to feel what you feel. And over time, what maybe does it lets a little light in and it reminds us that maybe there's something left for me to experience in life. And it's very interesting too. It doesn't demand it. It doesn't say you must move on. You must start thinking differently. No, it's so hard. If you're afraid of uncertainty, positive thinking is so hard because when something negative or horrible happens, it's going to be hard to hold it.
Right.
But maybe it's so gorgeous because it allows us to sit here and all it does is says, maybe there's something left for me to experience. And with that thought, with that moment,
Mm.
some light shines in. And when you have some light, eventually if you're still here and you're still breathing, eventually you're going to say, what's left for me? And so
Mm.
I even had a fellow who called me and his mother was in the ICU unit. And he's like, my mother's dying. And my first reaction, he goes, where's maybe? And my first reaction to him was, why are you on the phone with me? Go back into that room, even in that moment. And I don't say this easily. I realize that it's a very difficult moment. His mother was passing, but his mother was alive for 5 more hours. And there was 5 more hours for him to experience something. And he went into that room and he took a deep breath and he said, maybe there's something left for me to experience in that moment. And he held his mother's hand and he felt her heart and he touched her face. And to this day, he calls me up and he says, Allison, I'm so
Oh.
thankful.
So
I'm so
sweet.
thankful, right? I'm so
Yeah.
thankful that I had those moments because I was going to sit on the phone with you, and then I was going to call my uncle, and then I was going to call my brother, and then I was going to talk to the doctor. And I would have missed those final moments. He goes, and so I could cry too. Sometimes I could close my eyes and actually feel her. I could feel her because I was so
Oh,
present for
beautiful.
those 5 moments, 5 hours. And that's what maybe is it's the hardships happen in life. But if we can remember this one little thing, we're going to show up and say, what is possible in this moment? And it's so
Mm,
profound. It is so profound. And it just brings us so clear in this moment to get the most out of life. And ultimately, that's what we want.
yeah,
It's more than the colleges. It's more than the business. It's what's happening in this moment. How could I squeeze the most out of life? And
oh,
that's for
yeah.
me. That's where maybe is the most profound. That's
That is a beautiful, beautiful story. I'm just gonna let that sink in.
yeah,
I mean, because he was in that place of maybe he could be completely present with his
right,
mom and has a memory that will last for the rest of his life.
right.
I mean, that's just
Because he was projecting. He was already gone. She was in the
mm,
future. He was calling it, and it was, and remember, we all leave this earth someday, right?
mm,
And so, and even that, even, and I don't really talk about this that often, but maybe actually has changed my relationship with death because it's the great unknown. I have no idea. And within not knowing, there's hope and possibility that maybe there's something else after we pass. So to me, it's like I don't sell people, there's karma. This all I say is that we don't know, and within not knowing, there's hope, and that's a beautiful place to stand in life. To always hold hope. I always say it's hope without attachment, right?
right.
You kind of show up for life and keep this knowing that change is not so scary when you hold hope at the same time.
Mm, mm.